looking, throwing in the end zone. Caught it! Montana, touchdown, John Taylor.
Young to the air, Young to Jerry Rice, touchdown San Francisco.
Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owens.
Hello and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis, plus timely and entertaining sports and pop culture topics. Today, we're going to be recapping the 49ers' 32-19 opening Monday night win against the New York Jets. We're going to go over stats, Pro Football Focus grades, snap counts, and then dive into the great night by running back Jordan Mason, how the offense just found consistency after a bit of a rough start, the defense playing well, specifically the run defense, and tie it all together in what we learned after quite the dominant performance. There's going to be no plus content this episode. Hopefully we'll pick that up again on Thursday, but it is a Victory Tuesday. So let's get into discussing the 49ers win over the Jets.
Let's talk Niners.
So I imagine there's not that much you're dissatisfied with after that dominant 32-19 victory by San Francisco over the Jets. Also a score that has never happened before in the NFL for whatever that is worth. Going into the game, there might have been some frustration or dissatisfaction with Christian McCaffrey being ruled out about an hour and a half before kickoff. We're going to get more into that as the podcast goes on. But then probably midway through the first quarter, 3/4 of the way through the first quarter, I think we all felt pretty comfortable with who was toting the rock for the Niners. Let's quickly go over some stats. Total yards, 401 to 266 for San Francisco. No turnovers for the Niners, 2 for the Jets, 24-14. First downs in favor of San Francisco. Time of possession completely dominated, 38 minutes and 40 seconds to 21 minutes and 20 seconds. And overall plays, the Niners had 72. The Jets had 51. Brock Purdy, a very efficient night against a very good defense and secondary. 19 of 29 for 231 yards. Aaron Rodgers, first live game action in 20 months, 13 of 21, 167 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Jordan Mason, breakout game, first start in the NFL, 28 carries for 147 yards and 1 touchdown. Debo, 8 for 23 and a score for the Jets. Breece Hall, 16 rushes for 54 yards and a touchdown. Receiving wise, Jennings, 5 for 64. Debo, 5 for 54. Kittle, 4 for 40. And Ayuk, 2 for 18 for the Jets, who had Allen Lazard going 6 for 89 and 2 scores. And Garrett Wilson, 6 for 60, did most of his damage in the first half. Turnovers, the two the Niners got. Malik Collins recovered a Breece Hall fumble that was punched out by Fred Warner. And Demetrius Flanagan fouls picked off Rodgers after Lenore batted away a pass intended for Garrett Wilson. The only sack of the night for San Francisco came courtesy of Leonard Floyd. Now, quickly, Pro Football Focus grades on offense. The top 5, Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, Dominic Pooney, Jawan Jennings, and Colton McKivitz. 3 offensive linemen as your top 5 highest rated players for the 49ers, at least graded by Pro Football Focus. I think you have to feel good about that, especially with Williams missing all of training camp. He played all but 2 snaps. Rookie Dominic Pooney being there. McKivitz has been much maligned for the majority of his career. So to see that they performed well and graded out higher than a Jordan Mason who had a great game. Debo was carrying the ball and catching it as well. And the protection that they gave Purdy, for the most part, was very good. The bottom 3 players graded out on offense: tight end Eric Saubert, Chris Connolly at receiver. Actually, I only have 2 of the 3. I apologize. Defense, top 5, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Charvarius Ward, Isaac Yiadom, and Jordan Elliott. The bottom 3, Surprisingly, Diamador Lenore, Leonard Floyd, and Demetrius Flanagan foul. So Floyd with the sack, fouls with an interception, and Lenore with that bat away for an interception. Still overall did not grade out, obviously, as well as a lot of other players. Snap counts to note. The receiver breakdown just between Debo and Ayuk. We heard earlier in the week that Ayuk wasn't going to get a full complement of snap counts. He doesn't play every snap anyway, and the Niners did have 72 offensive snaps. Debo, playing both the running back and wide receiver role, had 53 snaps. Ayuk at 43, so 10 fewer than Debo. Now, if Debo wasn't in at running back, he might have been in at receiver instead. So that number probably would have stayed around 53. Maybe, given the toll, the wear and tear on even just having one running back carry versus running a route and not being targeted, maybe Debo gets to the high 50s range instead. But Ayuk only 10 snaps behind, and he played well over half the snaps. At receiver, at linebacker, both Fred Warner and newcomer Devondre Campbell played all 51 snaps. Now, that was curious for me. The last drive of the game that the Jets had, they had Breece Hall in there for the beginning of the drive, and I'm thinking, you took Aaron Rodgers out. Why is Breece Hall in? And they took him out subsequently thereafter. But the Niners kept their starters in. Bosa was still in, Warner, Campbell, Ward, Lenore, the safeties. It was a 3-score game, guys. I can understand, even if it's a 2-score game, and the Jets only got it back with a couple minutes to go, and obviously scored a garbage, meaningless touchdown at the end. But and Kyle has that nervousness to him that, the game's obviously not over until you see, whatever, triple or quadruple zeros up on the scoreboard. But there didn't seem to be a need to have, say, Bosa and Floyd out there, or leave Campbell out there, take Warner out, take one or two of your corners out. 3-score game, 2-score game, maybe I could see a little bit differently. You don't want a quick touchdown by pulling half or more of your starters and then a chance for an onside kick. But when it's 3 scores, I just felt like it was a bit overly cautious. But both starting linebackers played all game. The defensive end rotation with Yetur Gross-Matos not in. Bosa played 48 of 51 snaps. Leonard Floyd, 34. Sam Okiwanu played 14, and Robert Beal played 6. So let's get back to the man of the hour, or at least the man of this week, and could be the man of next week, of week 2 as well, depending on how McCaffrey's calf and Achilles respond. Jordan Mason, 28 for 147 and a score. That's 5.2 yards per carry. Now, the biggest thing that we've always said, and you can see about Jordan Mason, is that he runs hard. Hard, strong runner, does not shy away from contact, has the dreads, looks like Marshawn Lynch running out there, maybe about 10 pounds lighter than Lynch. But in addition to running hard, especially when you saw it live and then you saw the replay from a different angle, how Mason showed really good patience and vision in the hole with cutbacks, showed good wiggle, weaving his way through linemen and linebackers on a couple runs. And obviously it wasn't, if he was 28 carries for 90 yards, then it's just, all right, a battering ram. It's about 3 yards to carry. There wasn't an explosive element, in those numbers. That's not what he was. And we're not going to mistake him for Christian McCaffrey, although, he did have one catch for 5 yards. It was a first down. It was a little out pattern to the left that Brock Purdy found him on. So Mason's path to becoming a more trusted running back 2 came with understanding the playbook in full, came with being more comfortable and knowledgeable about pass protections, and having better hands. We know that he bought a jugs machine in the offseason, and again, the one catch for 5 yards, I don't think we could say that he's highlighting his new hands just based on that. And I always said, and I stand by, I don't care what kind of running back you are, even a fullback. Even if you're someone like Patrick Ricard on the Ravens, a 300-pound fullback, no one's asking you to run quick slants or choice routes or, bombs or posts or anything crazy, but you've been playing, these human beings have been playing football since they were kids. It's astounding to me that there are professional running backs in the NFL who are said to have bad hands or can't catch. Does this mean like if they have a younger sibling or a child and they're in the backyard playing catch with them, that every time the child throws the ball to them, it's like this running back is trying to catch the football or a baseball or a frisbee with like two frying pans? I've never bought into the whole, well, he's not really a 3-down back because he can't catch the ball. It may be true that you don't have good hands, but how the hell, professional football players, do you not have even decent hands? We're not talking about anything crazy. Swing pass. Well, we saw a little check down, a little curl, maybe in front of the center or just in the dead spot of the zone, 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's not asking too much. But Mason improved his craft, and we'll see, in the coming weeks if that comes to light more. Now, before the game, maybe a half hour before the game, I texted one of my buddies and said, well, McCaffrey's out. Debo's going to get 10 carries. He got 8. I was close. If I was on Price is Right with the Showcase Showdown, I wouldn't have won because remember, you can't go over. But as you saw watching the game, no other running back got a carry. And again, the Shanahan trust issues of Guerendo being a rookie. And Patrick Taylor was active, and he's been a pro for 3 years with Green Bay, played in the playoff game against the Niners, had carries, I think had a reception. There doesn't seem to be a huge excuse to not give another actual running back a carry when Jordan Mason, starting his first game, and you saw the graphic, hadn't carried the ball 28 times since high school. He was a part-time player at Georgia Tech. He wasn't a featured back for the most part, or for the vast majority of games, rather. So Debo got running back 2 carries. Trust issues. Are we right off saying that Debo's a better running back than Guerendo or Patrick Taylor? I mean, if someone wants to say, yeah, because he's so dangerous with the ball in his hands and he knows the offense, he knows where the hole's going to be, he has great vision, okay, fine. But would any of us really see another another coach in the NFL, whether it's Andy Reid or Sean McVay, Kevin Stefanski, Mike McDaniel? Do you think any other head coach would be that reluctant? And I'm going to spin it towards reluctant, not like, oh, Debo's so valuable and versatile, let's give, and talented, which is, I should have led with that. Let's give him running back 2 carries. What about the injury factor? Right? I mean, and I always say you can get hurt at any point, but Ayuk is rusty. You have Trent Williams, who his conditioning was much better than we thought for that large of a human being. You're missing, obviously, McCaffrey, which is why Mason is playing. Why don't you keep Debo at his natural position and get other carries from your other 2 running backs on the roster? It's such a Shanahan-ism. It was such a Shanahan thing to do. I don't want to say I saw it from a mile away. I saw it 30 minutes. I saw it 30 minutes before the game that it was going to happen. And yes, Debo is such a unicorn, an N of 1, such a unique talent. But perhaps we didn't really see those tunnel screens, those bubble screens to Debo. I think we only saw one that often because he was lining up in the backfield. And on top of that, you would have to imagine, like, say this script plays out the same way against the Vikings, where they sit McCaffrey for whatever reason. Mason's the number 1 and Debo's the number 2. Don't you think now the Vikings, and I'm sure the Jets, were tipped off that when Debo's in the backfield, he's going to get the ball? If I didn't record the game, I didn't watch it twice, I think every time Debo was in the backfield, or the vast majority, he had 8 carries. So if he was in the backfield 10 times, he carried it 8 times. So that's, to me, tipping your hand offensively about what your intentions are based on where Debo's lining up. At least if Grendo's in there or Patrick Taylor, it's they might hand the ball off. The only way you know it's not a handoff is if there's no running back there. And actually, I shouldn't even say that because it could be a jet sweep or it could be, a pass behind the line of scrimmage, which is then considered a handoff. But trust, obviously it worked out. And obviously Debo's super talented. But you thought highly enough of Patrick Taylor to bring him in as a free agent. You thought highly enough of Isaac Guerendo to trade up for him in the 3rd round. And yes, he's a rookie. And you may, against the Jets, is the moment too big? Like in any sport, when are rookies gonna feel more comfortable? By playing special teams? I'm not saying baptism by fire. I don't think he should have gotten 15 carries, but 5? Is that asking a lot? You don't want to set your rookies back behind the curve because you're hesitant to play them. And I didn't mean to get on a soapbox, but just knew that it was going to happen, and we'll see if it happens again if the situation arises. Now, when McCaffrey's healthy, now next week they're at Minnesota. The week after that, they're at the Rams. So 2 turf games, which has led people to speculate, would you sit McCaffrey out because it's turf? Now, it sounds like at least based on what Shanahan says and based on how this situation unfolded, you just like Belichick doesn't want to make comments when he was coaching, and I don't think coaches need to say any more than they need to or tip their hand. We're going to leave it up to the player. If the player feels good, turf or not, we'll let the player decide. Should be a winnable game, right? And after Mason's performance, and maybe they get another running back involved, they decide to sit McCaffrey again. Naturally, I drafted him with the number 1 pick in one of my fantasy leagues, and I didn't take Jordan Mason. I think I took Tyler Algier as one of my last picks instead. Go figure, right? But I still got my ass rolled in that game. So even if I started Mason, I would have lost by, I think, still like 20 plus points. But when McCaffrey's healthy, how many carries should Mason get per game? To me, at least 5 to 10. Because if you can top McCaffrey out carries-wise at under 20, let's just say 17 or 18, and you can get Mason close to 10, then you're getting into the high 20s, and maybe Debo gets a carry or Juszczyk or another running back. God forbid 3 running backs get a carry in a game. I mean, crazy. Mason, I think, proved it to us, a lot of us, last year that he should be more involved. And I don't know if we know for certain who's in charge of the running back rotation. Is it Shanahan? Is it Bobby Turner, the running back coach? Or is it the play? And you saw last year at times, very rarely, McCaffrey asking to come out. You saw a couple times where Mason was gassed. He asked to come out. So I don't know if it's a shared responsibility, but there is, I think, a responsibility, especially with Christian coming back, to ease him into it. Bring your battering ram type of player in as well. And then it adds a little bit more deception to your pass game because they may think, all right, well, Mason's in. Maybe or maybe not a run, but he's really not that threat in the passing game like McCaffrey is. Not to say they're going to leave him wide open, but, right, you would defend McCaffrey differently out of the backfield than you would Mason. Now, there was a big deal made in the interview after the game where Lisa Salters asked Jordan Mason, when did you find out if you're going to start? And he said, I don't know, maybe Friday night. And then that led to questions from Shanahan in the post-game press conference. And he's like, no, that's not what I told Mason. I told him that, better be ready to start. You better be ready to play. This is going to be a true running back 2 situation. You're going to play more than you have. Who knows what to believe? Right? Like it should be surprising to us that I think it was August 5th or 6th, the first week of August, when McCaffrey said, calf, not a worry. If we had a game this week, I would have played. And that was a month ago. Now, injuries, setbacks can happen at any time. Just because 3 to 4 weeks plus goes by doesn't mean he can't, tweak something in a workout or at home, walking up and down the stairs, whatever it could be. So there is still a part of me that wonders, did the Niners actually know? Was Mason actually told? And that really only matters. It wouldn't have mattered for me for fantasy football. Again, I did not have Jordan Mason. I don't know how much it would have mattered to bettors. There might have been more people that would have taken the Jets and lost money. So whoever put money on the Niners, if you would have flipped that script a little bit, be glad that the Niners didn't reveal that injury. But for the injury report, I mean, I know Vegas cares about that stuff, and the NFL cares about accurate injury diagnoses and revealing it. So I don't know if there's going to be any sort of look-see into that by the NFL, but I tend to believe, I don't think Mason, I mean, it's different to be said, hey, you are Friday night, hey, Jordan, you're going to start, versus you're going to play more. Those are different words. That's a different phrase. That's a different feel. And I don't think Jordan Mason's going to misunderstand those two different phrases from Kyle Shanahan, but it could have happened. And I'm not that super cynical of a person. Let's leave that to the Grant Cohns of the world, because I'm sure he's going to be rattling some cages. Where's the article from him or some of the other Twitter twats or just twats in general about, why did they give McCaffrey a raise? Look at what Jordan Mason can do. Why'd they draft a running back at all? Why'd they draft Isaac Guerendo in the 3rd round? Trade it up for him if they're not even gonna play him when he's active. Gotta find a negative somewhere, right? Asshole, quasi self-important journalists. You know it's coming, guys. You know it's coming. But let's, stick with the offense. The consistency against an elite defense was fantastic. Beyond the first couple possessions for both teams, they were ugly. 3 and out. Jets fumbled on their second possession. Niners couldn't do anything with it. 4 plays, 3 yards, kick a field goal to go up 3-0. That started 8 consecutive scoring drives by San Francisco. And if you want to talk about offensive consistency or balance, and this isn't even balanced when you think about it, not to the letter of the law or letter of the word, 29 passes, 38 runs for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of people may want to call San Francisco a run-first team, and that could be the case. To me, a run-first team in that manner of phrase is using the run to set up the pass. And a lot of teams in the NFL do that. And if you call a team a run-first team, that's really what it is. When the numbers, though, are imbalanced the way this is, 9 more runs than passes, then it was a run-first night. This run-first team made it a run-first night, and why not? Because they were gashing them specifically with Mason. But let's go to those 8 scoring drives. So I mentioned, and as I'm reading it, think about the sustainedness of the drives, how long the drives were, not time-wise, although there was the big one to start the second half that ended in a touchdown and took up half the period. 4 plays, 3 yards, and a field goal. Then they went 9 plays, 37 yards, and a field goal to make it 7-6. And then here's where they didn't look back. 12 for 67 and a touchdown. 12 plays again for 75 yards and a field goal that ended the half. First play of the second half. First drive, rather. 11 plays for 70 yards and a touchdown. 8 for 26 and a field goal. 11 for 75 and a field goal. And then 5 for 26 and a field goal. That was the Isaac Yiadom bad knockaway from Garrett Wilson. Close to midfield. The Niners got into field goal range and put their final 3 points on the board. So drives of 9 plays, 12 plays, 12 plays, 11 plays, 8 plays, and 11 plays against a top 3 defense, against probably the number 1 secondary in the NFL, against a team that should be able to get to the quarterback better than it did. Obviously, they were missing Hassan Reddick, but Purdy was protected really well all night. He took 2 sacks, but one of them was a bootleg left where nobody was open, and he kind of just ran around and ducked. Should have just kind of threw the ball away. I don't know why he didn't do that. And another one, which was kind of like a give-up play. It wasn't a someone off the edge or pushed the pocket back and actually sacked Purdy in the pocket. Now, granted, the Jets did have 2 sacks and the Niners did have 1, so you could say, oh, maybe their pass rush performed a little bit better. But the O-line, which for a lot of reasons was a concern, Pooney, different in the regular season than preseason. McKivitz, people are always talking about him. Jake Brendel's gotten on the wrong side of a lot of fans. Aaron Banks dealing with a finger injury, wound up leaving the game with a calf contusion. We'll see what his status is for the Minnesota game. And of course, Trent Williams coming in with 0 training camp and played all but 2 snaps. The other thing just to bring up and talk about regarding the offense was obviously Brandon Ayuk, only 2 catches. People are getting on him about that. He drew Sauce Gardner most of the night, and if it wasn't Gardner, it was going to be Reed or Michael Carter II. Sauce knocked away a good route by Ayuk on a slant, and Sauce wound up getting his hand in between Ayuk's hands as he was trying to squeeze the ball and knocked it away. Now, are we going to say that's a bad play by Ayuk or a good play by Gardner? It was a good play by Gardner, right? It's not like Ayuk caught it, secured it, and then Sauce ripped it out and it's a fumble. Like, let's look at it that way. That would have been an on Ayuk type of thing. And of course, that diving, beautiful pass by Purdy to the right hand back of the end zone where Ayuk dove and couldn't make the catch. Now, folks want to come out and say with training camp practice, he makes that catch. I don't know. How many diving catches is he practicing in camp? Do you think the fact that he just wasn't catching ins and outs and curls is going to aid him on that type of leaving your feet and getting horizontal type catch? Now, we saw him do it last year at Philadelphia in the regular season, this time going left, and it's a catch that Ayuk has made and can make, but I think we should ease up on he wasn't in camp and that's why he dropped it. Guys, it wasn't an easy catch. Professional football players can make that, but we're not saying that's not a 8 out of 10 times type of catch. It's just not. Now let's switch to the defense. Now, I'm not going to lie. The Jets' first touchdown drive. It was a nice drive, 12 for 70. Brees Hall had a rushing touchdown. Not going to lie, had me worried. Garrett Wilson couldn't be stopped, in the first quarter, first half. He was kind of getting what he wanted. Rodgers picking him apart. It seemed like Rodgers had an answer for what Nick Sorensen on defense was doing. They mixed the run and pass really well. It was a really nice response and drive by the Jets. Outside of that drive, the rest of the game, the Jets had 196 total yards, and that included 70 garbage yards on their final drive. So 266 total yards of offense by the Jets. Now, was there rust for Aaron Rodgers? Of course there. How could there not have been? How could there not have been, right? Rodgers was only 13 of 21. Shocking, only 21 passes in a game where they trailed most of the game. And as it got into the second half, they were down by 2 and then 3 scores. 167 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He was only sacked once. So the Jets line, 3 new starters, super duper maligned last season, but then again, that's why they have 2 new starters and held up well in pass protection for Rodgers. I mean, there wasn't times other than Leonard Floyd's sack where, there might have been a handful of times, no more than 5, maybe 4 or 5 throughout the game, where it looked like the pocket was being pushed, or Bosa or Floyd or Sam Okinawa or Robert Beal, Hargrave were getting in there, really pushing the pocket to make, I don't think we could say Rodgers was uncomfortable because of the Niners defense, specifically the D-line. I think we could say Aaron Rodgers was uncomfortable getting on the same page with his offense, playing against a defense that was not the Jets defense. That's all he saw in training camp and minicamp. And the Jets have a very good defense also, but this is a different team that's going to give them different looks. But what we can say about the defense and the D-line, the run D, at least for one night, was very good. 19 rushes for 68 yards and 1 touchdown. That's 3.6 yards per carry. Now, I went back and was kind of looking at the play-by-play and down and distance situation. Like, did the Jets get away from the run? The game did not really get away from the Jets until end of the third, beginning of the fourth, when it became a 3-score game, 26-7. Jets had 10 runs in the first half. Remember, it was 3-0, 7-3 Jets, 7-6, 13-7, etc. It was only 16-7 at the half. They had 10 runs in the first half, which means they had 9 runs in the second half. 1 was by Tyrod Taylor. And actually, of those 10 runs that the Jets had in the first half, 1 was a kneel down by Aaron Rodgers at the end of the second quarter. So it was 16-7 going to the half. After the Niners' first drive where they cashed in for another touchdown, it was 23-7, still a two-score game. So it's not like the game was so far out of reach that they could not, that they felt like they had to abandon the run. They just couldn't sustain drives. Running it or passing, they could not put drives together outside of the broken play drive, the offsides, where Rodgers hit Lazard down the middle of the field for a touchdown. When that stuff happens, I mean, if Alan Lazard had won a jump ball on Odom or Jair Brown, it would have been okay. You know Rodgers was going to throw it up. Whoever was, the deep man on that pattern. All right, you tip your cap to him, but Lazard was wide friggin' open. So how much a defense hesitates when it's looks like it's a false start or an offsides. I don't know why it happens. Everybody stops. Why it happens all the time. And even the person, sometimes that's the offender. I don't think it was Leonard Floyd did this, but how many times have you seen a game where a D lineman jumps off sides, they throw the flag, that person that jumps off sides kind of gives up, and they let the play run. And actually, if you got that jump and it's off sides, then get your ass to the quarterback. Right? Like, you gave yourself, and you were penalized. You gave yourself that extra start. So make the most of it. Run your ass through it. Not to say it would have mattered with Leonard Floyd last night, but the Jets scored on we'll call it a broken play. They obviously that nice touchdown drive. We'll call it a broken play, but it's just so weird, right? How defenses react to things where they should be now on high alert. Like, oh shit, the offense has a free play. And of course, the touchdown drive at the end that was orchestrated by Tyrod Taylor. Now, one game, but let's discuss some takeaways. What did we learn? Biggest thing, or at least from a spotlight perspective, after all of the offseason drama, the 49ers were locked in for this game. After all the offseason drama and knowing that you're still going to miss Dre Greenlaw, that they weren't going to have Hufanga, that they knew that basically, a couple days ago over the weekend, that they weren't going to have Yetur Gross-Matos, and learning whenever they did, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday before kickoff, they weren't going to have McCaffrey, so you're missing 3 starters and a part-time starter in Gross-Matos, and to still be locked in and to dominate a team that outside of the Chiefs has as good a chance as any other team to make it to the AFC title game. We're not going to say Super Bowl because the Chiefs are still the standard until further notice, but can everything clicks and they're healthy and they're going to get Hassan Reddick back at some point. As good a chance as any team in the AFC to get to the title game. I mentioned the past couple podcasts that defenses generally are ahead of the offense to start the season, right? Think about the bad quarterback play that we saw on Sunday. Daniel Jones, Will Levis, Kirk Cousins, okay, coming off of an injury, but still wildly unacceptable the way he played. Caleb Williams. everybody's favorite person to drop to their knees and suck off before the season started. Awful. He had the lowest yards per attempt ever in NFL history by a rookie quarterback making his first career start. And that's with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift, who I drafted in fantasy in one or both leagues. Thanks for not doing anything for me. And the Bears still won that game against the Titans because they got a blocked punt for a touchdown and a defensive touchdown. But nothing from Caleb Williams. He'll have better days, of course. The Jets D was supposed to lock down San Francisco. And beyond that, the first half of the first quarter, the Niners did whatever they wanted to them without the best offensive player in the league. And we're going to call him that because he won the Offensive Player of the Year award. Locked in team. Not saying they're not going to go 17-0. Not saying the Super Bowl loser hangover isn't real. This is a one-game sample. But you want to come out. This was a statement game. Because as much as, they knew that it was an emotional game for the Jets, and the Jets are a really good team, and Robert Saleh is coming back to play the Niners, and Rodgers is back, and the Jets want to prove that obviously last year was a fluke due to quarterback injuries. They laid a complete egg, but they laid an egg because of what the Niners defense did to the Jets, and because the Niners offense controlled the clock. They bullied that vaunted top 3 Jets defense in a way that they may never be manhandled again this season. Let's give a tip of the cap to Nick Sorensen. Called a good first game. While I was worried on that, first touchdown drive by the Jets, and I think all of us fans, I think we kind of get maybe like a little bit of a doom and gloom, like, oh shit, that was a nice drive, or a team scores early or gets up by maybe 10 points on the Niners. You're like, oh, might not be their day. I think we all as fans just maybe sometimes too early go to the negative versus, they'll come back. And they have the talent to come back on offense. They have the talent to clamp down on defense, but that did have me worried. I don't know, how much of it was Sorensen's adjustments. There was some dropped passes that they couldn't get the running game going, but all in all, 266 total yards to a team that does have talent on offense. Tight end's a non-factor for the Jets, right? Tyler Conklin, nothing. Running game, nothing. Pressure on Rodgers was minimal. So it looks like, at least from this game, or what Sorensen wanted to rely upon this game, was relying on the front four for pressure and playing coverage behind it. It was very rare that Sorensen brought a fifth. So it was going to be up to Floyd and Bosa, Hargrave, Collins, Elliott, Givens, Beal, and Okinawa to get to beat their single teams or double teams, and they generally, or for the most part, didn't do that. But let's also give a nod to Devondre Campbell. Again, I said before, he played every snap with Fred Warner. And George Odom, who isn't a starter, right? He's not. I mean, he's on that team for special teams, but you didn't hear his name once. It's like an offensive lineman. If the announcers don't call your name, that means you're having a good game. He was not a liability. There was no, maybe the Allen Lazard broken play touchdown. That's either Jair Brown or Odom. I don't know who the single high was, or I don't recall who the single high safety was on that play. But two players that could have been question marks going in, good first start. We knew Trent Williams is a beast. Further cementing that as 36 years old, no training camp, playing against a good defense, playing all game, and obviously getting an IV at halftime. Kyle Shanahan, best or top 2-3 play caller in the NFL, if you want to throw Sean McVay up there and anybody else. Did he show you guys that he can game plan without McCaffrey? And listen, you can draw up the play. You still have to have your players execute it. You still have to have Purdy making the right read. You still have to have Mason hitting the hole, seeing the cutback, making people miss. But if people are going to say, oh, Kyle's only, I don't think anyone should ever say that Kyle's a product of the talent. I know a lot of people are saying that about Brock. And after the first half of the first quarter, again, really did whatever he wanted to the Jets secondary. But drew up that game plan without McCaffrey. Now, I think a legitimate concern for some of us who learned that before the game, because you saw what happened when there was no Debo for 3 games. And there was no Debo and no Trent Williams for 3 games, so maybe that's a little bit of a different animal. But as much as Debo takes away certain things from a game plan, McCaffrey takes away even more. That's why I think it's still so impressive what Kyle was able to do, but this offense as a whole, run blocking, pass blocking, converting third downs, sustaining long drives. Again, they did not play the Cardinals. They didn't play the Panthers. They worked over a really good Jets team. And maybe this is when you want to get a team like the Jets. Because I know a lot of Jet fans or sports talk in the Northeast is saying, oh, I'm liking the Jets. This is when you want to get the Niners, Ayuk, Williams, no training camp. They didn't know about McCaffrey. Can you imagine, at least, well, not you, but me living in the Northeast, if we knew a couple days ago McCaffrey wasn't playing? Jet fans would have been rubbing one out in the hours leading to the game, because they certainly weren't rubbing one out after the game, right? The way the game ended. Feeling like, oh, this is going to be our year. But in typical Jets fashion, I'm not going to say the Jets jetsed. 4th play last year, Rodgers tears his Achilles. 4th play this year, Breece Hall fumbles. Sad symmetry when it comes to Jet stuff. Hopefully, Kyle, even though he says it, that he trusts Mason as a legit number 2 running back, and one that he will more frequently, and by more frequently, I don't mean 1 carry or 2 carries, more frequently rotate in with McCaffrey. I don't think that's going to be an issue when McCaffrey initially comes back, but I think this is a great way to keep him fresh, spell him throughout the game and year. If it means his stats are down, and I have him as my number 1 fantasy football pick, I don't care. 25 less carries, maybe 10 less receptions, and an X number of less snaps is only going to be a good thing, especially if they are still winning with that absence of McCaffrey not being on the field. And lastly, guys, it's only 1 game, right? Obviously, takeaway is only 1 game. But to me, the Niners still look like the best team in the NFC. Anybody that's beating for the drum for the Lions, at least right now, all we can go off of is 1 game. The Niners manhandled the Jets. The Lions struggled with the Rams in overtime. A Rams team who, if you watch the game, had a litany of injuries at the O-line, lost Puka Nacua. And I'm not sure if tight end Tyler Higbee played it much or at all, if he was injured, whatever. The Jets, on paper, are a better team than the Rams. I know a lot of people are all over the Rams too. And kudos to McVay and Stafford and Kupp and the whole Rams team for kind of hanging in there. I mean, they took the lead at one point, right? At least I think they did. But let's just say an undermanned Rams team gave the Lions fits. The Niners ass-stomped the Jets. Week 1, the Niners look like the best team in the NFC. That could change week 2, right? Niners lay an egg in Minnesota. Lions look good. Not least to my opinion. You'll see the fluctuations in power rankings on NFL.com, CBS Sports, ESPN, wherever it is, right? But at least for 1 week, the demise of the 49ers has been greatly exaggerated, and that Super Bowl window is still open. So I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the 49ers Plus podcast. Like always, appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. There will be another podcast on Thursday. I'm aiming for when games are Sunday, Mondays and Thursdays. So Monday is going to be our reaction show with some thoughts. Thursday is going to be anything else newsworthy that happened on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And then a look ahead to the 49ers next game, which is against Minnesota, a revenge game after what happened there last year. But we will go into that on Thursday, and hopefully, if there's some plus content stuff to talk about, we will talk about that as well. But a good victory Tuesday. Left the game relatively unscathed, went into it scathed. Greenlaw, Hufanga, right? Knowing about McCaffrey for an hour and a half. Hopefully Aaron Banks' calf isn't that bad, and hopefully Juwan Jennings' ankle is okay. He left for a couple plays, came back and did play, but you know anybody that's sprained an ankle playing basketball, doing anything, how it feels the next day and couple days. So something there that we will keep our eye on. But whatever you are doing between now and when we next talk on Thursday, stay happy. You better be. Big week 1 win. Stay healthy and stay safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.